If during your term as senator, the executive department entered into a non-aggression treaty with China to not allow any foreign country to use one's territory as a base for direct or indirect aggression and intervention against the other country, how will you decide during the ratification of this non-aggression treaty with China?
Okay, we will now start with Deputy Speaker Rodante Marcoleta.
The question is
Difficult.
on whether or not the Philippines will sign a non-aggression treaty with China.
I think it's for other countries.
I think we have to be guided by our state policy. I will go back to that because our state policy states that in our relationship with other states, the paramount consideration is national sovereignty, our political integrity, our national interest, and our right to self-determination. I will be able to process that by being able to reflect on these guideposts. If in my determination, all these particular factors and elements of our state policies are served, then I will act in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to Senator Gringo Honasan.
What will drive our decision to sign a non-aggression treaty is our foreign policy, our foreign policy, our security policy, and economic policy. And this will be based on how we define our national interest. But our audience is not only China, but the entire global community. We must continue to occupy high moral ground by pushing for peace and economic stability, political stability in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Senator J.V. Ejercito.
As long as our sovereignty is protected, then and our territorial integrity are both protected, then we have to study this one. No? And likewise, if we also agree that we want peace in China. If we can have joint exploration probably, but we have to make sure that if ever it's in our property, if we have to in territory, we have to be on the upper ground. No, we have to make sure in the Senate that we will not be shortchanged. In fact, we have to be on the high ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jess Aranza.
We have a favorable decision from the arbitral court. How will that be affected if we sign? Will that totally erase that victory? If it will not, then I will agree. But if it does, then I will not.
Thank you. Let's move on to Dr. Mingita Padilla.
I don't think I will immediately sign it. I don't think it's even necessary, because if it's a non-aggression, it means we will not be, do anything against the other. It's like I don't want my hands to be tied for that, because if something really necessitates me partnering with another country because they did something to us, I don't want my hands to be tied. So I will not sign such a treaty without studying it very well. It should not be against our country's interest. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Nurmahal Kiram.
Kung makakatulong po ito sa Pilipinas, then it's okay. Magsasign po tayo. Pero kung halimbawa wala naman po siyang kinalaman or konti lang po yung mapapakinabangan po natin, then pag-aralan muna po natin ulit. Ha?
Thank you. Mr. Ding Diaz.
When it comes to ratification of foreign treaties, I believe the main basis of any particular senator would be what is good for the people, because what is good for the people is going to be good for the country. Now, considering that the other country in particular is China, then we are talking actually of the entire region, if not the entire Asia. A non-aggression agreement, tulad nga po ng sinabi ni Doktora, wala naman po ito dahil non-aggression. But in actuality, kasi po, world powers play by perception. It's always a mind game. It's always a psychological game for them. And it's the same thing that is happening in the West Philippine Sea, same thing that is happening in Europe, same thing that's happening in any particular country. We play our cards right. I will sign if it is for the betterment of the Filipino people.
Thank you. Yusek Astra Pimentel.
When we look at the history of the Philippines and China, we have always been trade partners. Nagsimula pa sa barter, hanggang sa ngayon ay kapartner natin ang Chinese. Wherever we look, wherever we go, there are Chinese Filipinos around us. The non-aggressive treaty, if we look at all the conditions that's being there, I would consider it, most especially if what's being said there, what's being placed there are towards peace, development, economic development, exchange of technology that is geared towards mutual development. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Manny Piñol.
Again, let me repeat that foreign policy is the exclusive domain of the President. But I will share my thoughts on this issue. Number one, is there really a need for a non-aggression treaty? Is there a threat of aggression in the first place? If there's none, I don't see any reason why we should sign a non-aggression treaty. Second, if there is indeed a need for a non-aggression treaty, would, as emphasized by Mr. Aranza, would the WPS issue come into play? If this is settled, then I will support it. But if that is not settled, I will not support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Greco Belgica.
No, it's tantamount to surrendering our opportunity to protect ourselves.
Correct.
I think it's a trap. It's a
Time.
trap to... Now, who will define and how will you define aggression in the first place? Suddenly, they call you out to be aggressive, then what do you do? So, I think that will not work. It is an impossible condition for peace. I still maintain that the only way to have peace is to make your enemies know that you're ready for war at any time.
Secretary Salvador Panelo.
My position would be, then as now, the President espouses this kind of foreign policy. We are friends to all and enemies to none. But if any of our friends assault our territorial integrity and sovereignty, then we become enemy of that friend of ours. Kailangan po, ang lahat ng mga tratado na papasukan natin ay kailangan palaging batay sa interes ng ating bansa. Hindi pwede na tayo'y magpapaloko, magpapabola, at mahihikaya tayong pumasok sa isang tratado na pagdating ng panahon ay pagsisisihan natin. Kailangan po pag-aralang mabuti. Pero gaya nga ng sinabi ng iba nating mga kasama, teka muna, non-aggression. Baka talian mo sarili mo dyan. Baka ikaw ang bitayin ng sinasabing kaibigan.
Thank you. And now all the candidates have answered. It's time for interpolation. Go ahead, Deputy Speaker Marcoletti.
Sinabi po ni Kadjes Aranza at saka ni Secretary Piñol na sila'y magdidesisyon lamang kung walang epekto ito dun sa arbitral decision. It is as if that decision has something to do with the question at hand. Ano po ba ang ibig niyong sabihin na dapat masettle doon sa decision? Ano po ba yung decision?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Aranza.
Yung pinanalo nating desisyon, siguro alam mo naman yun. Ang tanong ko lang, yung ba ay nakapending? Pero sinasabi natin na hamot nakapending yan habang kung anumang pagdating ng oras, babalikan. Pero kung yan ay alisin, anong bali walang pinaglalaban natin? Bali walang pinag-usapan natin? Ganun ho ba ang gusto natin?
Daphne, follow-up question on that.
Go ahead, Dr. Uy.
The question of Ms. Sass is actually, if you will enter into non-aggression treaty with China, but the operative word there, I think, operative words there is, the specific is no, it's like asking you to commit that there should be no foreign military bases in the country. So if you will not ratify or you will not join that kind of alliance or agreement with China, would it mean as well, on the other hand, that you're open that, you know, the country would have foreign military bases? Is that so? Because the question is, no foreign military bases in the country, which equates to non-aggression. That's what the question is all about. So now, since you said that, you know, we don't want to do that because, you know, it would compromise the sovereignty, national security of the country. Now the question is, so would it mean that you're open, that the Philippines would have foreign military bases in the country in some ways, or, you know, to that extent? That's a question, no? That's just a question.
Okay, let's go back to Mr. Marcoleta. Go ahead.
That will complicate matters even more, because our constitution prohibits the presence of foreign forces in our shore, and then of course we cannot barter our state policy that the state should pursue an independent foreign policy. We will not be able to maintain such neutrality or independent foreign policy if there is that kind of condition dangled to us.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am. Ms. Pimentel.
Entering into a non-aggressive treaty with China actually puts us at an advantage, because that is the time that we could already set our ground rules with them. We could always give them what we want as far as the relationship between China and the Philippines.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Belgica.
Simple as disarming yourself in front of an enemy that is armed against you. So, in the situation we don't have the military capabilities to fight China. And the posing threat, yung pag-withdrawin ka ng alisin mo yung mga arms mo, is already saying na surrender ka na sa akin. And if you don't surrender to me, then I will be aggressive to you. So we can't get into that kind of agreement.
Secretary Panelo and then Senator Honasan.
Regarding the concern of candidate Aranza, he says that the non-aggression treaty might affect the arbitral ruling. Let me say that the arbitral ruling cannot be diminished by anyone or by any force on earth. That is permanent. Whether they like it or not, we want it, and it will be there forever, like the Rock of Gibraltar.
Thank you, Senator Honasan.
The Philippines is 120 years old. When we deal with a country like China with a history of 5,000 to 8,000 years, we better be careful. And there is such a thing as diplomacy. The situation sometimes is, even before the terms of reference are clear, we broadcast ourselves over media, which puts both parties in a corner. We paint ourselves into a corner. So our foreign policy, our security policy, our economic policy is a function of our ability to enforce and leverage it.